Hello friends, Tanya here for Spellbinders, the December 2023 Club Kits 10 card video. There's going to be an extra card. We're going to start out with the Tiled Hearts embossing folder and a bunch of die cut wine bottles. First we're going to do the landscape embossing. I just did some partial embossing with that. Matched up the pattern and repeated it. This is the Cheers Up large die of the month. I'm going to use some pearl luster gilding polish on this embossed panel. We're going to start out with a 5x7 card, my favorite size, and my favorite way to add a little bit of shimmer right now. We all go through phases. It is my pearl luster gilding polish phase. So I'm adding that shimmer just to the raised portions of this embossing folder, which has a bunch of beautifully designed hearts, and they alternate up and down. So it's not a directional pattern other than in order to get a landscape look with the 5x7 card, I did need to do that partial embossing trick. Now I'm using the gilding polish to add a little bit of shine and shadow to our wine bottles, which I've cut out of several pastel colors in a rainbow selection. We've got a pink, orange, yellow, blue, and a very light purple. Those quick little swoops of gilding polish really add a nice subtle shine and a little bit of optical illusion dimension to these cute little wine bottles. We're going to add the embossed panel to our 5x7 card base, and this panel is 4.5 by 6.5 inches. I was going to adhere that straight to the card base and then realized I want to trim off the wine bottles on the edge of this panel. I don't want them to go all the way to the edge of the 5x7 card base. So I better glue those down first. I start with the pink in the center, and we're going to go in a modified rainbow order. We'll do pink, orange, yellow towards the right, and then we'll come back around with blue and purple. I found it was pretty easy to nest these together by alternating up and down directions for our wine bottles. And I'm going for a fun, whimsical graphic design on this card front. We're going to trim off the extra portions. We're going to save the larger pieces to go on the inside of the card. That is a great way to use all of the bits and bobs that you create for your cards and to bring the design inside without creating a lot of extra work. Now it's time to actually put this panel on the card front. So we'll put glue again, and you can see that I've added some extra cardstock as always. I really like the stability that it gives, especially on any embossed or ink blended, anything that might warp your paper. It's going to make the card just look that much better. Next, we're going to take these pieces of wine bottle, and I'm just going to even this edge out because I cut it off with my scissor. So I'm just using my guillotine trimmer to even up the edges. I'm not trying to go for any specific height for these wine bottle bottoms. I'm just going to make them nice and straight. And then we're going to take our card base and we're going to glue those on the inside. I may not be able to get all of these wine bottle bottoms in the card, but we will give it a try. We'll start with the pink in the center, and again we'll do blue and purple to the left. And it looks like we'll only be able to get part of the blue and the yellow wine bottle bottoms on the inside of the card, but that's okay. There's going to be enough of them there to carry on the theme from the inside, from the front of the card. Now that I have all of those adhered, I did make sure to give the crease enough space to fold easily. Just trim those off, and we're not actually going to do anything with those last bits that we cut off. Then we're going to take the Stitched Love dies. These are really pretty. we're going to take the flower. So these are stems and flower bases, and I've tucked them in between the different wine bottles. I thought this was a fun look here, and it really makes me think of visiting a winery with your girlfriends. Lots of floral motifs and laughs and fun, sampling the wine and just getting out and having fun together. Do I drink wine? Not especially, but these are fun. And those kind of outings, even if you don't drink alcohol, they're kind of fun to go explore the beautiful wineries, the countryside. Usually they have a beautiful setting for you to hang out. And it's just fun to do things with your friends and family. Now we're going to add the circular flowers. There's 2 different sizes. I chose to use the gold mirror circle and the brushed white circle flowers. I did not do any stitching on these. You could, but for time's sake, I chose not to. And we're just going to adhere those, kind of alternating the colors, not necessarily by size, but what's closest to each other. Just a couple more flowers to adhere. And this could be a birthday card, it could be a Valentine's card, it could be a thinking of you card, it could be anything. I did oh, hey, look, I brought out some Trinity Stamps embellishments. I have rainbows of them, and I took some halfback pearls in some pearly colors. We've got a pink, a purple. Oh wait, no, I did a yellow. I think it was cantaloupe was one of them, lavender color, and a blue. And then I took for the gold flowers, I added white halfback pearls. And those turned out really cute. Love my Barely Art Precision Glue for getting embellishments attached to cards. They look really sweet. And now we're going to use the Glimmer of the Month, My Heart Smiles. There are 2 sentiments in this kit, or no, on this small piece. It's got 2 sentiments on one plate, and then there's one die that cuts both of them out at once, which I love. Now this says Happy Valentine's Day and Happy Galentine's Day. Great way to use those. I used the scripty font and heat foiled that. And we're going to use an old die. This is from my Forever Person. I believe this was from December of last year. That looks like the stamp and die of the month, and it's actually still available. So if you don't have it, this would be a good one to pick up. Makes a nice heart, has a nice heart die. There's some fun sentiments in that stamp set too. All right, now we're going to adhere this heart with the hot foiled cursive sentiment to the inside of our card. Going to erase some little bit of glue that I got on the inside. And that is card number 1. Card number 2, we're going to do a bunch of foiling. I'm going to demonstrate how I did the foiling on this. It's a 5x7 piece of Hammermill cardstock that I'm going to ultimately cut down. So I'm placing them in the corners to do sort of a frame, laying the foil under the plate, and using the hinge method with the Best Ever craft tape, getting that lined up. This happens to be the satin rose gold foil, and I do use this, but not on the card that I'm going to show you first. I actually foiled it again with some polished brass, I think. No, I think it's satin gold foil. And that foils just beautifully. Now we're going to color this entire pile of flowers. This was not that difficult. I think it took me about half an hour to do all of the coloring for this particular card. I'm using some pinks. I'm using a darker pink to color the tops and the bottoms of, or the centers and the edges of these larger flowers. And then I'll come back in with the lighter Copic color, the lighter pink, to blend those together. I really enjoy Copic marker coloring or alcohol marker coloring, and I haven't really explored the other brands. A lot of people have, and there's the consensus is Copics are fantastic. They are top of the line, and some of the other brands are just as good as the Copics, but with a lower price point. There are some trade-offs with all of those, but I have all of the Copic markers. So I'm going to continue using them because I'm not going to buy a whole nother collection of something that I already have. But if you want to enter the alcohol marker realm, you could certainly start with something less expensive and see how you feel about it. We're doing some buttery yellow, smaller flowers. And then we're going to use 2 different groupings of greens for the different greenery on these groups. Or maybe I only used 1. I've got a darker and a lighter green here. And honestly, I have gotten over the need to have the exact numbers for the Copics. Please just reach into the marker supplies that you have and use something that you enjoy. So that is all of the flowers on this larger panel. I went and foiled another panel because I want these flowers on the inside of the card also, and I will color those. But before I color them, I'm going to add one of the cursive Glimmer foil sentiments from the Glimmer of the Month kit, and I'm using the satin gold here. We'll peel that back and look at that. It is so lovely. You make my heart smile, it says. And I colored that off camera. Now we'll stick that to the inside of the card. If I am putting the inside of the card together before I do the front, that's because I actually had a plan for it. If you see me doing the inside of the card later, it's because I don't have a plan. That is, and I most of the time don't have a plan until I've finished the front, because my plans often change as I go. Here we have the stitched letters from the Stitching Die of the Month. Spells out love in a really fun font. And I did go ahead and stitch these with some white crochet thread. And I'm using a piece of press and seal to hold them in the position that I would like. So we've got pink, white, gold, and yellow. And I thought that matched very nicely with the flowers on the Glimmer foil here. Use that heavyweight block to make sure the stitched elements stay adhered well, and it's called Stitched Love. I did not ultimately use that nice big scalloped rectangle die. Oh, really want to though. Next we're going to play with Big Love, the clear Stampin' Die kit of the month. I want a sentiment from that set, so I'm going to heat emboss that in, I think this is brass embossing powder. I did stamp it 2 or 3 times. I didn't figure you wanted to see all of those stamp repetitions. And then we'll heat set that, and we'll get a lovely raised and shiny sub-sentiment to add to our large stitched dies. I used the coordinating die from the stamp set. There's a long sentiment banner in that Stampin' Die collection, so you can die cut your sentiments. We're going to pull out the Aura Opalescence sequins from Spellbinders. These have lasted me a really long time, and they're a nice versatile color. It's kind of a light lemony cream color. And I have 2 little groupings of 3 just to even things out, and that is card number 2. On to card number 3. I recently got a hold of a bunch of craft colored cardstock, and now I can indulge in my love of everything craft. So we're going to do some stamping with some clear embossing powder here, or clear embossing ink, with the large Love stamp. There is a coordinating die, and you don't actually have to use the stamp with the die. It is a perfectly readable die. It still says Love. And we're going to heat emboss this with copper. I wanted the heat embossing on here. I did stamp that 2 or 3 times also to get a nice solid inking. And I had recently re-inked my clear embossing ink pad. And look at that, a nice solid covering of copper embossing powder. We'll heat set that, and I really like how this came out. Nice bold letters, great coverage with the embossing powder and the heating. There's just something magical about a heat embossed sentiment. It looks so polished and finished. So here's the coordinating die for this large love word. Just going to use some best ever craft tape to tack that down and run it through the die cutting machine. I did die cut a couple extra layers of cardstock to back this word because I wanted it to stand out from the project. So I'm just going to adhere those. I'm putting glue on the embossed portion and adding the white cardstock pieces behind the word love. This is my favorite way to do these kinds of things. You could use foam tape like dimensionals, but this is my preferred way. I like that I'm just using scraps of my cardstock and that I am sticking with things that are all pretty recyclable. We'll use that heavyweight block to make sure that it adheres well. And then I cut out all of the hearts and the greenery in that stamps and die set. I could have stamped all of those, but I decided to skip that step and just die cut a bunch of green leafy branches and some nice red hearts in 3 different sizes. We'll adhere the love to the front of the card here. Now you're going to see that I change the plan after I get all of these things glued to the card front. I'm going to start tucking these leafy branches around the word love, and I'll start with the large leafy branches, and then I will add the smaller ones to do some filling around the letters. I'm sorry I sound so stuffy, you guys. I cannot wait for this cold to go away. All right, back to the tucking. More of these small branches just to fill things in. I really wanted this to be a fun floral-ish background with lots of greenery poking out from behind the word love. You will see that I use almost every single branch on the front of this card. Some of these groupings of leaves will have 3 branches, some will just have 2. I'm going to use a variety of these different hearts. I start out by adding the largest and the smallest to the E, the medium size to the O. I'm going to put another medium size on the the V. And I decided I needed one more small branch there for a little more balance. And that one was a little stubborn. And then we'll use one of the large hearts on the L and another small one with the large heart. I just really liked the way that looked. And I'm looking at this card thinking, yeah, I think it still needs more. Let's try a sub-sentiment. I am stamping this a couple times with embossing ink. I guess 3 times. And then I'm going to use some brass embossing powder. Nope, I changed my mind. I'm using gold. Or am I using copper? I decided not to use brass. And it doesn't look like gold, so it must be copper. And I'm using the pointy end of my pickup stick to get rid of some of the extra powder that I don't want to emboss. We'll heat that up. I did use a scrap of heavyweight cardstock. I think I've mentioned it before. I have lots of strips of heavyweight white cardstock from cutting down card bases, especially for the 5x7 sizes. Now that I've die cut that with the coordinating die that comes with the clear Stampin' Die of the month kit, I'm centering that in the middle of the word love. Still loving it, but not quite. So I decided to take, these are my only 2 Spectrum Noir tri-blends. I do really like these. And I know I just said I am not going to get other alcohol markers. But if I did, I'd be tempted to get either the Ohuhu, because they're really inexpensive, in comparison, or these tri blends, because if I got another set, it would be something that condensed a color selection that I could bring with me traveling, like when we went on vacation or when I am at my stepdad's, because I don't want to be hauling a ton of stuff back and forth all the time. Now this tri blend is the jade and no, I don't remember what the red one was, crimson maybe. And they are working really well to color in the greenery and the flowers here. I'm not coloring every single leaf and every single flower, but a good chunk of them. And I started with the darkest of the greens, and then I actually decided to use just the darkest, I think, for the spiky greenery, and two color. No, I think I used all three colors for the other kinds of leaves in this floral background. This is the same floral background as card number 2, but with a different color combo, and this gives it more of a Valentine's feel or a Christmas feel. Actually, these colors look kind of Christmassy to me. And I chose the colors for the coloring based on the cardstock that I used for the hearts and the greenery that we put around this big word love. Just getting the rest of the flowers that I want here. And I did do some tip to tip coloring with one of the Copic markers because I wasn't quite getting the blend I wanted for these smaller flowers, and this actually turned out really well. These colors go really well together. It's the lightest of that tri blend, and I think that is I'm not sure, that might be R22. I'm not positive, but it really turned out nice. Now I'm cleaning off the tip of my marker so it doesn't have any more of that other color on it. So when I use it the next time, it will actually be the color I'm expecting. Just adding some finishing touches to our flowers here. And some of the things that I had glued down, I can actually pull up just a little bit so I can get under and color a little better. I'm not being super picky with my coloring here, just throwing it on with some shading, trying to stay within the lines. I think I did a pretty good job. I really like how this turned out. It really was lacking something when I just had the foiling. I just wanted the flowers in the background to stand out more. Few more finishing touches here. I kept thinking, oh, I'll stop now. No, I'll stop now. Nope, I kept adding more. A work in progress. I enjoyed the coloring though. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you don't want to see all of the coloring, I'd love to hear your opinions on that. Do you want to see more of it, less of it, or is this just right? I guess I used the lightest marker of the green for the spiky bits of, well, some of the spiky bits of the greenery. Actually, I'm looking at this card front, and I ultimately did 90% of the flowers and leaves with the coloring. This is a really long video today. It's over an hour. I know my last couple I managed to squeak it in under an hour. I hope that doesn't turn anybody off. Next, we're going to take some of this unraveled distress mica stain. I'm going to take the nozzle out of the bottle after I shake it up really good and add some to this block because I want this color in order to spatter it all over the card front. I know the card front is nearly complete and it's going to spatter on more than just the background, but I thought it needed just a little more going on in this card. And I really like how it turned out, so I don't regret it a bit. Next, I'm taking this Gold Luxe Dream Drops, and I did struggle a little bit. This nozzle was starting to get clogged. That seems to be my problem with Nuvo drops all the time. I did pull the cap off a couple times and trying to clean it out, and that did make things go much better. My centers of my flowers do kind of blob together, but you get the picture. It looks really good on the finished product. And that finishes the front. Now I have to be really careful because those dream drops are still wet. I'm going to take these remaining pieces of greenery and hearts, and we're going to adhere them in a cluster in the lower right corner of the inside of the card. That way I use up all the pieces, and again, we have the design from the outside brought to the inside. Do I have 2 or 3 hearts? I think I have 3 hearts here that I'm going to add just in a nice little cluster in the greenery. I don't have an extra sentiment for the inside, but I sure could have found one. I just chose not to at this moment. On to card number 4. We're going to use this really fun wax seal. It says "Love You to the Moon" and back. With my wax seal this month, I got coral colored wax beads. We're going to melt those. You can see that that was actually a seal that I didn't like, that I remelted, which is super easy. I just cut it in 4 or more pieces, remelted it, and now we're creating that wax seal. So now I've got some black that I'm going to mix with the coral. And here are the 3 deco color paint pens that I got from the Spellbinders store. Now I've learned the hard way that you can't just brush over the top of these wax seals to help with that, bring out the design. I have to just dab the top. Otherwise I get way too much marker on the wax seal and it's hard to see the details. So I'm just carefully dabbing along the words so that you can easily see that it says "Love You to the Moon and back." I think this is a really fun seal. It's nice when things, when we get a wide variety of themes, makes it easier to create, and it really creates a nice diverse collection. Just dabbing and dabbing until I get my finished result, and I really like it. We're going to, just for the heck of it, I'm going to show you this black and coral blend. And then I think I added a copper or a goldish color and the coral. And I got a few different blends there. And I used all the colors of the deco colors. We're going to use the Cheers to Us. That's what it's called. I die cut a bunch of pieces. We've got the antique linen distress ink here. I'm going to do a little shading. You can see a completed wine bottle on the left, and I'm going to recreate that. I had actually filmed the creation of that first one, but my computer decided to update spontaneously while I was recording, and I lost that recording. Bummer. I'm using some specialty paper here. This is from Tonic Studio. It's a white cardstock with rose gold hearts. I die cut the embellishment elements for this wine bottle from those. I'm adhering the wrap for the top of the bottle and the label on the front. I have a gold, no, this is, I think it's Platinum Rose or something like that is what it's called. It's a mirror card from Tonic Studio also. I have 2 pieces of craft cardstock that are die cut with the 2 different pieces for the cork for the bottle. One is ink blended with brushed corduroy and one is not. I put the darker one on the background piece and layered those up. The lip of the wine bottle got layered on top of the cork. And then we have this cute little ribbon that is tied around the neck of the bottle. Adhered that. That was die cut with the same pink cardstock as the bottle. I have a couple extra pieces of cardstock to back this heart because I really want it to have some dimension. Adhering those pieces together. And once we get those well adhered, I'm going to adhere those to the ribbon. I have never seen a bottle decorated like this, but I think it's pretty. We're going to pick one of these wax seals and we're going to glue that on as the label on the bottle. Again, I just use Barely Art glue. They do sell stickers that are round that you can use for these wax seals in the Spellbinders shop. That is supposed to be the most secure hold. Next, we have the BetterPress Sun and Moon set from this month. This is a really fun BetterPress set. It has the sun and moon together, and it has 2 curved sentiments and 2 straight sentiments. All 4 of the sentiments have coordinating dies. I decided to hot foil this with some rose gold foil on some, this is actually cheap black paper. I just was experimenting to see if it would work, and it did. I think it's because it's a BetterPress plate instead of a foiling plate. These foil amazingly well. I am so impressed with them. So I've foiled the matching sentiment, and I'll die cut that with the coordinating die. This is going to go on the inside of the card, I believe. No, this one might go on the front. I did ultimately foil both of the straight sentiments for this from the set. I'm one for the inside and one for the outside. I add some extra cardstock behind the piece that's going on the front of the card. This is going to go right over the bottle, so I'm going to need a little extra on one end that doesn't sit on the wine bottle. We'll take care of that once we get it all adhered together. Now it's time to start assembling this card. I feel like there's one more layer we need, so I pull out the Tiled Hearts embossing folder and a piece of white cardstock that is cut just a little bigger than the black panel. We're going to pull out the Golden Flamingo gilding polish. This is available in the Spellbinders shop. It goes on pink on white cardstock, and it looks gold on black cardstock. So we're going to apply this gilding polish to the raised portions of the embossing folder, and only the edges are going to show, so you don't have to do the entire panel if you don't want to. This is one of my other favorite colors of the gilding polishes. I have several. When I really fall in love with a product, I tend to want a rainbow of it so I can use it on just about any color that I want. Now we'll check that out. Yep, that looks good. I add some extra cardstock behind each of these panels, and we'll adhere this to another 5x7 card. There are a bunch of 5x7 cards in this video. I let my love of 5x7s take control, especially since we had this nice wine bottle die set that is actually too big to go completely on an A2 size card. It's perfect to add to larger cards. Just gorgeous. I'm sure you could actually make a wine bottle shaped card base too, just by doing some partial die cutting along one of the edges of the bottom of the wine bottle. Why didn't I think of that before? Well, there's an idea. You can give a try on your own. I adhered all of the pieces to the front of the card. And here we're going to add that little bit of extra cardstock under the end of the sentiment so it's nice and flush with the rest of the sentiment. And this is the portion that is going to go on the inside of our card. Just going to center it towards the top of the inside of the card. Make sure it's straight. And that finishes card number 4. Card number 5, we're going to pull out the 3D embossing folder, 2 hearts as one. This is a unique embossing folder. It embosses 2 A2 sized card front panels at once, or you can just do one if you want. I did foil, not foil, I embossed a full half sheet of cardstock with this, and then I just cut it apart. I'm using my gilding polish again. This is on this is on craft cardstock, and it just really makes the embossing shine on this textured background. You can see a reverse foiled wine bottle next to the card. I had initially planned to use these together, but I did change my plan partway through. There's the lovely gilding polish. I did put some extra cardstock behind the panel again. We'll adhere this to a white cardstock base, and decided I needed a little more definition around the edges of this embossed panel. So I pulled out this, I don't even know what it's called. I think somebody called it a thread cutter, an edge rougher. I've had this for a long time. So if you have one in your stash, feel free to dig it out. If you don't have one, you might want to pick one up, or you can use your fingernails or one of the blades on your scissors. All of those methods work. Now it's time to adhere this to our A2 size card base. I did manage to sneak an A2 size card in this collection. Just going to get that well adhered. And you can see next to it, I have another one of these stitched love sentiments here. This time it's in green, yellow, gray, and blue. I was going for a little more masculine feel to these letters with a craft background and these slightly more masculine colors. This might work for any men in your life. Next, we're going to pull out the Stamp and Die Big Love. I'm using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and I'm stamping the word you from this stamp set. And I will use some clear embossing powder to seal that pigment or hybrid ink in. Otherwise, it takes forever to dry, and I really love the look of an embossed sentiment. And I just have this pot or container full of a variety of clear embossing powders that I like to use just for doing sentiments. And it's super easy because I just scoop it and tap it off, and I don't have to put things back in a container. I've stamped 2 sentiments on this piece of cardstock. I'm going to heat emboss the second portion. The longer sentiment is going to go on the inside of the card, and I am going to die cut that with the coordinating die from the Stamp and Die set. It's just a long banner that fits very well over the words here. And I did some partial die cutting to get that small U die cut with the same die. I'm going to tuck this under the E. Love you. Isn't that sweet? I think that turned out nicely. Inside the card, I'm going to adhere this longer sentiment, and it says, "My heart is yours." And then I'm going to come back with the heart and greenery stamps. I'm testing out my stamps a couple times here. And I was going to use the blocks to do my stamping, but ultimately decided to use my MISTI so that I can stamp more than once. I think I stamped 2 or 3 times for each of these images to get a nice solid inking. I am using some old ink pads that I haven't used in a long time to match the colors of the cardstock. Next, we're going to do some stenciling. This is the layering stencil of the month. These are gorgeous. This is a brand new club kit, and I fell in love with this. It is just gorgeous. I love layered stenciling. It adds such beautiful designs to your cards, and you can customize the colors and the textures you want to use with these layering stencils. I chose to use a light green. I think it's called Seafoam Green. I have a ton of old cardstock from Stampin' Up! Because I did sell Stampin' Up! For a while, and I left the company, but I sure as heck still can use the product. So I have more cardstock than any one person could use, and I thought it would be fun to do some stenciling on some colored cardstock. I am doing an entire half sheet of cardstock, just layering the stencils so that they nestle in together nicely. These are 4x6, 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 inch stencils. So they actually are designed primarily for an A2 size card. Of course, you know I'm not going to use these for A2 size cards. That's just not how I roll. I wanted to make a 5x7 card, so I am doing all of these different greens on this light green background with the intention of using this on a different size card. It is doable. You can get the greenery on these stencils to nestle in together so it looks like a cohesive pattern. Just going to repeat all of this stenciling on the second side. Of course, there is laser etching in these stencils, so you can line your corners up. I don't believe it has etching over the images on the stencil, but it's pretty easy to line them up once you I have found that if you put the skinny stems in before you do the heart embossing, heart ink blending, it does work a little bit better. I am using Distress Oxide inks. That is one of my favorite things to ink blend with, and I'm using the Distress Mini blending tools. I really like this. This is my favorite way to do ink blending. The brushes work good with dye inks, but not so much for oxides in my experience. Next, we're going to use the Sneaking a Kiss Die of the Month kit. It's really cute. There's this umbrella and a boy and a girl, and the girl's legs swing, or a lady and a man. I suppose you could make it a lady and a lady, or a man and a man too. All of those would be cute. So when I die cut the umbrella from that stenciled panel, I did put a piece of tape on the sections of the umbrella so that they would stay together, hoping that that would make it easier or faster to adhere them to the umbrella base. It did work for the most part, except I pulled this off too fast, and 2 of the sections came off with the tape. So I'm going to just reapply those to the base. This is a really cute umbrella, and you could use pattern papers to die cut for the top portion, so you'd have a nice patterned umbrella. You can use solid colors, metallics, whatever you'd like. So now I'm going to assemble our people that are going to go under our umbrella. On the legs there are some shoes that we can stick on. They kind of look like ballet shoes or high heels, however you want those to be. We've got this fun apple green skirt, and I used some a brown to die cut my flesh tones. This is the socks or the ankles. My guy's going to have a little bit of high water pants. We've got some black shoes to add to these feet. You can see all of those pieces over there on a piece of cardstock that I carried them on. My die cutting machine is in a different part of the room, so I have to carry things to my filming area. We're going to put the legs on, and it's best to put the more defined shoe on the right leg, on your right, and the other one behind it. And then we're going to adhere the stripes to this shirt. I start out with the top, which is the largest, and I am deciding what colors I want to use. I go with the brown base for the shirt, and then I'm using the light green and I think a pop of dark green. Let me pull that out. Yep, a pop of dark green that coordinates with his pants. Now the ladies' clothes and the man's clothes have different color themes, but they're all green. They're just different forms of green. I looked for colors that kind of matched the stenciling that I did and just picked a few colors. There are embossed lines on this shirt piece so you can get your stripes adhered correctly. Although this is your project, you could certainly create this however you wanted. Just one more stripe, and off screen I do put the stripes on the other 2 shirts, just so I have them available if I want to use them in the future. Now we're going to figure out placement of our guy and our gal, and we need a place for them to land on the card. So next I'm pulling out the Big Love Stamp and Die of the Month. We're going to take the largest stamp. We're going to heat emboss. We're going to go back to one of my other favorite techniques, and that's heat embossing with white satin pearl all over a background with an element that coordinates with the rest of the card. I stamp the love all over this panel, and again using the white satin pearl embossing powder. So I centered one image right in the middle, and honestly you're not really going to see this one, but it's a good anchor for the rest of the pattern. And this is a 5x7 piece of cardstock. I'm not actually going to use all of it. I am going to cut it down to, I think it might be 6x4 inches when I'm done, because I wanted a nice wide white border on this card when I adhere it to the 5x7 card base. So that's the first word. Now I'm going to put my paper back in the MISTI, use a piece of acetate to get the placement of the next stamping and heat embossing, and we'll do that again. I have to keep moving the paper and the stamp around, and I'm using that clear acetate sheet to help prevent getting embossing powder where I don't want it. And I'll just continue to stamp those all over the card front. Next, I'm going to jump to the inside of the card. We're using the same stencil and some green colors in the dye inks on the inside of the card. I want these to be a lot lighter than the excuse me, a lot of the stenciling I did, because I want to be able to write over portions of this, and I really want the word that I'm going to stamp on the inside to take center stage. So I'm just using these 4 different greens. It's the same greens I used on the background panel that I cut the umbrella from. And then we're going to take the word love, and I'm using the Distress Oxide inks in those same colors, and we're going to do an ombre effect here. I did stamp a couple times with each color, and I'm using a blending brush to soften the transition between colors. I only used 3 of the colors: the Twisted Citron, Mowed Lawn, and Pine Needles. Again, using my blending brush to smooth out the transition between different colors. I really like how that turned out. Now we're going to add a sub-sentiment to the inside with some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and this is going to say love always. I was a little worried about that ink transferring to the other side of the inside of the card, but I just let it sit for a couple minutes, and it dried perfectly. Next, I'm taking the heart stamps from that same stamp set, and I'm using the Twisted Citron ink in Distress Oxide, and I'm stamping these hearts in a variety of random places. I'm just trying to have a nice mix of sizes and not cover the entire panel with these little green hearts. I think it really adds a good element, the little pop of green in random spots on this background, ties it in with the rest of the portions of this card. And I think I decide that I'm done at this point, just about. Yep, you could keep going and going, but it's good to achieve a little balance there. Got some extra cardstock on the back of this panel, as always. We'll adhere that to the 5x7 card base. Give that a good rub. I'm going to pull out the Essential Modern Ovals and the 2 Hearts as One again. And I tried cutting this out with some brushed white cardstock, and I didn't like the match between the 2 whites there. So I cut it from the same cardstock that I used for the the heat embossed portion. And I'm using some Pearl Luster Gilding Polish again to shine up the raised images. This is embossed from the 2 Hearts as One 3D embossing folder of the month with the floral background around the central heart. I just wanted a little texture behind that. We'll adhere this oval to the front of the card, and now it's time to assemble our moving parts. So I want to figure out where the umbrella is going to land so I can determine where I'm going to put the legs. I have some foam dimensionals on the side here. And we're going to need to put those on the umbrella and the person, both of the people. So I put one in the center, and I'm going to mess up here. I put this dimensional too low, and I'm going to stick this right on my card front, making sure I line that up on the right spot for the legs. And then I realize my legs really aren't moving. That's because one of the dimensionals is right on top of the leg mechanism. So I find a smaller piece of foam dimensional here, and I stick that to the very top of the skirt. And then we'll take this same size dimensional and add 3 of those to the back of our fella and add him to the card. And he's going to be standing fairly close to our lady. And then we'll take the umbrella, and I want to tilt it to the left. I'm going to put some thin foam squares and some of these thicker foam squares together. This will make this just a little bit taller than the swinging leg mechanism, the dancing legs here. There are lots of dancing characters in the Spellbinders world, and I love when they throw them in the kits. It's like a surprise, fun little surprise, because I love cards with movement. I don't always have time to make them, but I do enjoy creating them. And there are our legs moving like they're supposed to. I did opt not to do any sequins on this one. All right, card number 7. We're going to pull out this stencil again. And this time I'm using lumberjack plaid, saltwater taffy, mowed lawn, and pine needles again. I did stick with the same greens. And I am doing another 5.5 by 8.5 inch panel of craft cardstock. I have 2 of these panels. I am going to show you one side, and just know that I do go back and repeat this on the other end of the cardstock, but one of the layers is going to require a little drying time. So next we have the hearts that we're going to use lumberjack plaid with. Just going to ink blend these. I really put these stencils through it worked hard this time because I really enjoy this stencil set. They're so pretty. We're going to do the thin stems that you can line up with the bases of the hearts. It's like the stems for the heart blossoms. And this is the one I'm using the pine needle Distress Oxide ink on. And the blending foam carries a lot of ink, which really helps get into all of those nooks and crannies. Some people really enjoy using the brushes for this because they are a little more detail oriented, but I've found that the Distress Oxide inks end up clogging up the brushes, so I really just stick with the Distress Mini ink blending tools. And the last piece of this stencil, we're going to take out the Simon Hurley Lunar Paste in Slippery When Wet and add these final details to the leaves. I am going to use this tool to smooth the lunar paste over the entire stencil. I was being extra careful, but you might have noticed I put a piece of clear acetate on the right side of that cardstock so I didn't accidentally get any ink or lunar paste where I didn't want it. And I did take this downstairs and run it under the sink and clean them well before I continued with any other parts of this project. Here's the big reveal. You're going to see this beautiful gold shimmeriness on the leaves as a nice element of surprise here. I really like how this turned out. And you can see that I got the the lunar paste on that acrylic, which is fine. And I did it in pink also, the saltwater taffy. And on one side of the saltwater taffy, I'm going to use the Moonlight Pearl Cosmic paste here. And This is white to clear paste with some shimmeriness, I don't know if it's actually glitter. If it is, it's really chunky. And this is a nice loose paste, so it's easy to spread. And it dries fairly quickly. I did layer it on pretty thick. I'm shuffling through my cards to find this card. What the heck? I end up using this portion first. Just scrape it off the excess, trying not to scrape out of the heart images, which is easy to do if you're a little too vigorous. And there is that panel. I only did one side. We're going to cut this in half, and we're going to start with the Moonlight Pearl version. I've pulled out the Essential Modern Ovals again, and we're going to cut out some of this stenciling. I'm going to make a mini slimline card. We're going to use the tiled hearts again and one of the Precision Layering mini slimline dies to cut a piece of cardstock 3 by 6 inches and then emboss it. This is going on a 3 1/4 by 6 1/4 inch cardstock base for my mini slimline, and that is the size I'm going to start using because I actually found envelopes that fit that. It's been an evolution. We're going to use some Petal Pink Mirror Card from Tonic and these gorgeous Everyday Sentiment dies. These are from the Simon Hurley collection, and you can get those in the Spellbinders shop. I'm going to cut the detail portion of our sentiment and this lovely U die cut from the die of the month. Mixing things up here. We'll layer this onto a piece of brush weight cardstock that is die cut with the shadow for the thank. So we're creating our own thank you sentiment with 2 different die sets. Just got to make sure this stays where I want it to stay. Using my reverse tweezers as an extra fine detail hand. Taking a scrap of cardstock to add a little extra dimension behind the thank. And dry fitting my elements here so I can figure out where things need to go. I think this is about where I want the thank. And then I'm going to use my reverse tweezers again to hold the word you as I'm adding glue to it. Any precision tip glue is going to be your friend here. This is a really fine line die, but with the precision glue, it's very easy to adhere it to your card base. Now I am going to have to trim these off up to the edges of this oval, which is pretty easy to do. I just use my fine tip detail scissors and cut those off. Last thing to go here is the thank. Get that all nicely centered. And then we'll use the dies for the hearts on the big love. And I die cut those from the scraps of the stenciled and cosmic shimmer pasted panel that I cut for the front of the card. And I'm just adding these cute little hearts to the inside of the card. We're getting close to the end here, y'all. I hope you're enjoying this video. I know lots of people have given me feedback that they have, and I really appreciate that. It really makes this worthwhile for me. Card number 8, we're going to use the My Heart Smiles Glimmer of the Month again. I foiled this sentiment on a piece of white cardstock. And we're going to die cut it with the Stylish Ovals dies. And then we're going to make another mini slimline card. This is a scrap of the same stenciled background I used for the umbrella, and it stands well on its own. I'm just going to adhere this sentiment to the front here. It says, let me find that card in my stack here. Thanks for just being you. Next, I'm going to take the Stitched Love flower here. I've got the kind of cup-shaped flower that I have die cut from some Mirror Gold cardstock, and actually did the stitching with a yellow-green colored DMC thread. It's 2 strands of the thread. I wanted it to be very fine. And I have this apple green colored cardstock that I'm using for the leaves and the stem, and those layer together quite nicely. On the inside of the card, I have another of the green leaves and stems. We'll tuck those in the lower corner, and we'll take a gold cupped flower that I have not stitched because we don't need that extra dimension in the inside of the card, and we'll adhere those together. Then I realized that it's not exactly the gold foiled one that I was supposed to use, so I offset it a little for a shadow background. We're going to pull out the Aura opalescent sequins again and add those for a little bit of shimmer and shine to the in a diagonal pattern with 2 groupings of 3 again. That seems to be my go-to formula. We're going to use the My Heart Smiles again for card number 9. You can see that I foiled that on some white cardstock, and I die cut it with the wine bottle from Cheers to Us, and I have 2 beautiful wine bottles from that, and then I took the reverse foiling and die cut another bottle. I'm going to use some Cosmic Shimmer Pearlescent cardstock from Tonic Studios. I have so much specialty cardstock. I am using it. Whether I can find links for it or not, you may have some of these products in your stash yourself. Don't be afraid to pull older items out of your stash. That was the whole reason you got them, was to use them. And this matched the satin rose gold foil perfectly. I just took my foiled item over to my stack of pearlescent cardstock and looked for the perfect match, and I found it. I added the die cut Cheers from the same die set, from the Cheers to Us die set. There are 2 cork styles in that die set, and I used one of each. One's more rounded and one is more straight. Next, we're going to use the new watercolor cardstock and the Sun and Moon BetterPress plate from this month. Just going to center that on my plate. I have a piece of 5x7 watercolor cardstock here. Going to tape that down. I just want you to see the process of placement for your BetterPress plates when you're not covering an entire card front. This is a rose gold pigment pad that I got in a kit from Hero Arts. And I ultimately ink this up and run it through the BetterPress, through the die cut machine 3 different times to get the level of color I wanted on this background. Now, I'm not actually aiming to highlight the sun and moon faces on the inside of this card. I intend to cover them up for the most part with the wine bottles. And I was struggling a little bit with how to make this background. And to be honest, this is not my favorite card. It doesn't still feel quite right. You'll have to let me know what you think, and if there's a suggestion you might have for how you would have improved this card. I'm ink blending here with Seedless Preserves, Salty Ocean, and Salvage Patina. Just working to get a good blend. And because this is a watercolor paper, you do end up getting more ink on your fingers. I like to use a long skinny block to keep my fingers off but hold the paper down. I'm using some pearlized water, which is simply perfect pearls in the perfect pearl color in some water in a spritz bottle. Next, we took the sparkles from that same die set and die cut those from some coppery gold colored glitter cardstock. I just found a loose sheet of it, so I don't even know where it's from. Going to adhere these 2 wine bottles to the front of the card. One is the reverse foiled and one is the plain foiled. I like how the flowers fit on those wine bottles at the bottom and the top. Adding our sparkles in the same pattern we would if they were sequins. I did add a couple of them on the solid satin rose gold foiled wine bottle. And I did use Glimmer specialty cardstock to do that. When I'm reverse foiling, I tend to use the specialty cardstock because you just get a better image. And then we're adhering one of the sentiments from last month's Glimmer of the Month. because there are so many amazing sentiments in that one. This says happy birthday. It could say happy New Year's, happy anniversary, happy Valentine's Day. Again, this would work for a lot of different things. I still have one wine bottle left, so I'm adding the cork to that. And we're going to adhere that to the inside of the card. Again, this just completes the look by bringing the elements from the front of the card to the inside of the card. And that's card number 9. Next, we're going to do cards 10 and 11. There's a bonus card in this video. I'm using the Everyday Sentiments dies again. So I die cut Happy Birthday. And these are the rest of the panels of the stenciled background that I did earlier. So we've got some mirror gold for the details of these words or the sentiment dies, and some brushed white for the shadows. I'm going to adhere them together. And these are going to be some very simple cards. The hardest part was probably the stenciling, and you can see one is a 5x7 card and one is a 4-bar card, which is 3.5 by 5 inches. I've cut down those main panels. The larger one is a 4.5 by 6.5 inch panel, and the smaller one is a 3.25 by 4.75 inch panel. Just finishing adhering our sentiments together. One is going to say happy birthday and the other is going to say thanks. I always need thank you cards for when we travel or for other occasions. It's always good to have some thank you cards on hand because you just never know when you're going to need one. Next, we're going to adhere these stenciled patterns to our backgrounds, again with the extra layers of cardstock behind the main panel, adhering that well. Now it's the small cards time to be under the heavyweight block. I have had questions about the heavyweight block. This happens to be left over from my Stampin' Up! Days, but I'm almost 100% positive, and I'll go back and look and link it if I can. But I think Hero Arts has a large one this size. Before I forget, I took a heart die from my stash, die cut that, and then ran it through the 2 hearts in one 3D embossing folder over the floral grouping on the heart, and then adhered that to the front of the card. Now it's time to add a little extra dimension behind our sentiments. I'm starting out with the larger card and the happy birthday. I just have a strip of scrap cardstock, and I do end up putting 2 layers on both of these. I do have to trim off that one. It's a little thick. I tend to have just scraps of cardstock laying close by for all of this layering that I do. We're going to center up our happy birthday. I'm just eyeballing the straightness, which I still get away with most of the time, thankfully. And then we're going to pull out some pink opalescent sequins from Spellbinders. Again, these last a long, long time. There are 3 sizes in these sequin mixes, and I love that because it's a good balance. I can use all 3 sizes in two or three groups of sequins on the card front. I think I did 5 sequins on the heart and then 2 small groupings of 3. I have some scraps of the stenciled background that I decided to put on the inside of the card. That's like the lazy way to decorate the inside of your card. But why not? You just throw those pieces away anyway. Just cleaning up some extra glue. I used a sanding block after the eraser didn't do the trick. Making sure my last card is opening in the right direction before I adhere the word thanks. And then I'm adding some sequins in the same pattern, but there isn't a big heart on the front of this one, so I am not putting any on the middle of the card. Another scrap for the inside of this card. I did trim these down to leave a nice little border all the way around the 3 edges. And that's all 10 cards. I hope you enjoyed this video. There are so many goodies in the kits this month. There's a new kit selection. It's called Deluxe Caboodle, I think it's called. It's all of the kits for $120. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, if you think you want to make these kinds of cards yourself, I encourage you to get the all of the kits bargain, because it is way cheaper than buying these individually. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Leave me a comment. Tell me what your favorite card was. Tell me improvements that you came up with for these different designs. Share your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in any of the product I used today, check that description box below. And until next time, bye-bye.